Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the stream. I'm Oliver the Ricketts, and yesterday was International Spider-Man Day, August 1st. In the MCU, Peter Parker's birthday, although I believe that is different depending on which iteration of the character that you do. If you don't know me, which would be very strange because you're watching me live. Also, no Spider-Man on the table? Hold on. Ugh. We'll at least put one Spidey over here, although it's going to be more of a Marvel stream today. We'll talk some Spidey. Marvel has had a really big weekend. What was I talking about? If you don't know me, hi, hello. It's strange that you're watching me stream. But my name is Oliver the Ricketts. I love Spider-Man, and I used to talk about movies here, but I don't do it so much anymore because I'm making other projects. Actually coming out hopefully this week. New video about the new ride at Disney World, followed by a video where I was adult baptized in a pool. So stick around for those. But when I stream here, that's when I talk about movies. That's when I talk about things like my never dying love for Spider-Man. So you can expect another stream when Venom The Last Dance, Channing Tatum, Magic Mike. When Venom The Last Dance comes out, I'll probably do one for that as well, like I did for Madam Web, because while I have high hopes that Venom 3 will be the best of the three Venoms, that still doesn't promise a good movie. So if you're here and you're watching, thank you. Make sure to hit the subscribe. Make sure to like this video, and excuse me, that's what live video is, kids. These streams are kind of a stream of consciousness. This is what we call a Hangout stream. But then I'll be cutting them up into shorts so that you get some of the more digested points throughout the week. But for now, hang out with me. Talk about Spider-Man. Yesterday, we were going to do a International Spider-Man Day stream, as we did last year, and as I would like to do for the following years. But we were having what you call network connectivity issues, as Chris Pratt would say on Parks and Rec. I could not get that stream going. We've been having some problems. I do live out east on Long Island. We only have one internet provider, and they suck. And they have a little monopoly on the whole operation here. It's very dismaying. So anyway, I set up a whole stream. I actually spent like 2 hours doing it. As you can see, I think this looks pretty good, but it didn't work out in the end. It was just freezing. If anybody was here for that stream, which I know quite a few people were, it was just freezing and getting stuck. And it was not the kind of video that I want to put out. This is barely the kind of video that I want to point out. Live video is so funny because I am a little bit of a perfectionist. I'll admit that. I spend so much time on these videos that when one comes out and it's not exactly what I want it to be, it's very frustrating for me. Which is why American Genius has taken American Genius, if you don't know, is the documentary series I do right here on this channel. That's why that's taken such a high dip. Is dip the right word? A peak. It's taken a peak in production. And it is taking me longer to do it, but it is more fulfilling for me to make content like that. But then when I do a live stream, like, I hate the idea that this is the first time that anybody is seeing me, and it is just me talking. But that's also kind of the beauty of live, is that I have a couple ideas that maybe wouldn't be a full video, but I got some observations about Deadpool, about Dr. Doom and Robert Downey Jr., and about what they should do with the Spider-Man character in regards to these things. And what is the good of having a YouTube channel if you can't talk about it? Oh, that's really hot. That's really hot coffee, everybody. But if you do want to watch me talk about movies, feel free to check out the Designing Hollywood YouTube channel, where my movie review series is currently going full swing. We got to sit down with Marilyn Vance, from the costume designer of Die Hard and Pretty Woman and The Breakfast Club and all of these wonderful movies. I was very humbled that she wanted to talk to me about Die Hard, which is another one of my favorite movies that I've made a lot of videos about. And just today, I'll give you the sneak peek. I I got to talk to Philip Boutte Jr., who is a costume designer but also a concept artist who worked on X-Men Days of Future Past, which is my favorite X-Men film still. And that'll be over on the Designing Hollywood YouTube channel. I had a really fascinating conversation with him. It was so cool. He's also just such a nice guy, legitimately. So that was very, very cool. But yeah, so stick around for all that stuff. Also, shout out, before we get into it, to one Mr. Adam Noyce at AN Productions. I believe our podcast on Planet of the Apes, Go Ape, which is over on his channel. I believe the last one is airing on Sunday, although Adam hasn't told me that. He may be off by a week, I'm not sure. They have been airing on Sunday. That was really fun. We did a little sit down. They're about an hour apiece, and we did the 5 original Planet of the Apes films. I'm personally hoping that we then do the Mark Wahlberg remake and then the new movies. But we'll see. We'll see how these do for him. But you can also check that out on the channel page. I was also on the Film Fan Club show. This is all just, we're doing what's called a preamble here, everybody. I'm preambling because this is going to be a very stripped down stream. And I'm just kind of stream of consciousness. I was also on the Film Fan Club show recently with Sam Carrico. That is such a fun show. Check that out. We talked about Deadpool 3, just like I'm going to do on this stream. Now, all that out of the way. Welcome to the International Spider-Man Day stream. I have loved Spider-Man for my entire life. It's the character that taught me how to read. It is my favorite character in all of fiction. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, big shock, is probably like my 3rd favorite movie of all time. And I find National Spider-Man Day, although it's a fake holiday, to be something that I personally like to celebrate. Yesterday I couldn't, and that was the actual National Spider-Man Day, so join me today for a makeup stream. And we're going to talk about what is going on. And unfortunately, I have to start a little negative with where Spider-Man is in the comics. I still think the Amazing Spider-Man comic series is the worst take right now on Spider-Man. It's the worst the book has ever been under writer Zeb Wells. And which, the very good news, Zeb Wells will be leaving that book. It just broke. I don't know if his last issue, when it will be coming out. But Zeb Wells will no longer be the writer of The Amazing Spider-Man, and I think this is a really important step in bringing Spider-Man on the comic page back to some semblance of what we all know and love. This Amazing Spider-Man book has been so upsetting since it started about 2 years ago now. It's also the one that had issue 700 in it, that I almost felt like maybe the arc was set up so that John Romita Jr. could illustrate that, but then they kept going, and they kept going. Yeah, the basic concept of the arc is that at the beginning, Peter Parker is on the phone with Mary Jane, and she says, "Never speak to me again." And we don't know why that happens. It's like a flash forward. And then Mary Jane goes home, and she has kids with another guy. And a whole arc ensues from there. And it really feels to me like Zeb Wells was brought on to justify why Peter Parker and Mary Jane were broken up, which is very disappointing. I can't believe that even now, this decision has been so maligned since the 90s. Breaking up Peter Parker and Mary Jane was a terrible, terrible idea in the comics because those characters are meant for each other. They are literally written to be soulmates. And it's very disappointing that Marvel wants them broken up so badly and will not give the fans what they want, at least in the main 616 universe. And it really feels to me like they brought Zeb Wells in partially because he was a writer that would be willing to try to convince fans that they didn't belong together. A lot of steps in his book were taken, like Mary Jane having kids with another character. I personally thought that the husband, Paul, her new husband, should have been made into more of a villain. I thought you could have done something interesting with that, but they don't seem like they want to do that. Killed Mary Jane's kids off. That was weird, wasn't it? And then there's the famous arc, or the famous part of this arc, where Peter Parker says that him and Mary Jane were better off as friends because he views her as a sister. Which, if you've been reading comics and Spider-Man comics for as long as I have, that's not right. They're definitely not a brother-sister dynamic. They were written to be soulmates. It never got better than Todd McFarlane and how he treated Spider-Man in the 90s as far as his relationship with Mary Jane, where she's just very supportive of him, but her own character in her own right. I don't think they need to be broken up. And why am I talking about Zeb Wells? Other than that, he's leaving Amazing Spider-Man, which is, oh my god, tremendous news. He was in another very big Marvel project recently that I have some pretty significant problems with. And that would be Deadpool and Wolverine. The popcorn bucket is here. I actually, funny enough, these sold out so fast. I know, I'm preaching to the choir here. Saw Deadpool and Wolverine opening day. I went to a 2:30 showing of it because I had to catch a flight in the evening. And I figured, like, oh, I was expecting the popcorn bucket to be sold out, but look, I can get one because I'm at a 2:30 show. The popcorn buckets were on sale in my area at 1 o'clock. I got in. They had plenty of Headpool, which, by the way, who the hell wants Headpool? I want the Wolverine with an open mouth for me to put things in it. Plenty of Headpool, but the Wolverine with the open mouth popcorn bucket that was so publicized was not available. Removed, actually, because they just didn't have enough to support how many people were coming in to buy it. And the last one on the table, this was the display model. And it didn't have, as you can see, I don't have the bucket part. I just have Wolverine's exposed mouth. So anyway, that was very disappointing. But they sold me this, and honestly, this is the piece that I want. I don't need the popcorn bucket. This will just sit on the table when I make videos about Marvel from now on. But very interesting that this sold out so fast. I see them going right now on Facebook Marketplace for like $100. That's crazy. So Deadpool and Wolverine is the movie that everybody is having so much fun with right now, and I think that's incredible. It's definitely the movie Marvel needed to make right now. Just a movie that reminds us that Marvel can still surprise us, can still have fun, and the movie definitely has a lot of heart. I personally put it at a B+. I made a short earlier this week where I said that Spider-Man, of the 3 multiverse projects that they've done so far in their multiverse saga, which has been all over the place, Spider-Man No Way Home to me is the best one. Because Spider-Man No Way Home, I feel, juggles the concept of the multiverse and having a good story pretty well. It does both things well, in my opinion. I know that movie is so overhated now, but Spider-Man No Way Home, there's legitimate magic to that movie, I think. All of the cameos are in there to further the story. They all get to do something, and they also don't show up like cameos. Like real world, we know they're cameos because we saw the Amazing Spider-Man franchise and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. We know they're cameos. But I never really bite with this idea, and I've made videos about it, that Spider-Man No Way Home feels like a sitcom. Like when Andrew Garfield comes out of that portal, there's a 5-second-ish pause. But that can also play as the characters just digesting that, oh my god, my friend exists in this other universe and he's here, an alternate version of my friend is here now. I don't think that that's as big a problem as people pretend it is. Now, the cameos in Deadpool and Wolverine, oof. First of all, they're so much fun. I'm not here saying that the cameos in Deadpool and Wolverine are not cool. They are so cool. But that doesn't change that even though everybody wants to dog on Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire coming out of the portals, that's a story beat. That is a legitimate story beat where they come in to an average setting as characters to further the story. And a lot of people complain that it's done just in the the living room of Ned's grandma. But to me, that's also the average, everyday nature of Spider-Man, right? Like, Peter Parker is an everyday person who this spectacular set of circumstances has happened to. I wouldn't want to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield just show up as Spider-Man and be treated with this like epic reverence, because that's not real. Those characters feel real. Even the villains in that movie feel so naturally baked in, right? Like when Doc Ock shows up on the bridge, we know that's a cameo, but it also story-wise works for this movie. Deadpool and Wolverine has a sequence where 4 cameos walk out and just music plays. Nobody speaks, they look at the camera, and then the next cameo comes out. Nobody speaks, they look at the camera. And that's definitely paced for you to cheer. So I don't understand why No Way Home gets ripped on the way that it does. But everybody seems so cool and okay with just, yeah, these guys show up and they're cameos for me to cheer at. You know what I mean? There's actually a scene in Deadpool and Wolverine where all the cameos come out and go, I'm this guy from this thing. And then a character actually on screen goes, wow, for you to clap. And that's okay, because those things, they're fun. I'm not saying that they're bad. But I am saying that No Way Home maybe handles that in a more movie sense to me than just, this is here because it's fun. I also said in this short that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was more entertaining to me, or a better film to me, than Deadpool and Wolverine. I think Multiverse of Madness is so slept on. I think it's such a cool movie. It's so gothic and horror-based, and Sam Raimi actually gets to come in and be Sam Raimi in the Marvel Universe. I know people rip on it being like, well, it just tried to like fill the movie with cameos, but I don't think it did. I actually think the cameo sequence in Multiverse of Madness plays as a joke. You know what I mean? Because the movie was so marketed as this cameo's here and this cameo's here. And when you get there, they die within the first minute because it's mocking you for ever wanting the cameos over the story. That's Sam Raimi nudging the audience and saying, like, I showed you them, and now I'm going to kill all of them. But if that doesn't work for you in a multiverse sense, I totally get that. I personally think Multiverse of Madness, ironically, could have just not been a multiverse movie. It could have just been a Doctor Strange movie. It didn't need that in the title. It didn't need that to be the pitch. I do think the cameo scene is the weakest in Multiverse of Madness. For the movie itself and for all of the multiverse stuff. But I also think the multiverse stuff is kind of over pretty quick, like as far as the cameos go. And I think at its heart, Multiverse of Madness has a little bit more to say. It's a movie about wanting things really badly and it just not working out. And taking the concept of the multiverse, which in fiction is used often as like you could have anything could happen. But Doctor Strange at the end of the movie discovers that he still is not going to be with Rachel McAdams, with Christine Palmer, because of a problem within himself. He needs to work on himself. And even though he loves her in every universe, he's not ready for that kind of change in his life. That's a really mature story point. Wanda thinks that she can bend the multiverse to get exactly what she wants, but at the end it turns out that the multiverse actually limits her in that regard. She can't be with her kids because there's still another multiverse Wanda. I think these are kind of mature story arcs. They are more about the characters and the character beats than something like Deadpool and Wolverine, which uses the multiverse great, but it does use the multiverse to show us old cameos and older stuff. And I think the biggest problem with Deadpool and Wolverine, and here's where we tie back to Spider-Man. Deadpool and Wolverine is multiverse and cameos and fun first, and story second. And I think the story is very weak. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's a big summer comic book movie. Of course the story's weak. I'm going to have to fight you on that. I think Deadpool and Wolverine could have had a very good story and could have had a lot of heart, and it does have heart. But Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2 are really fun, fourth wall breaking, big cameo movies that show this character to still be so full of heart, and so full of personality, and you really care about what Wade Wilson is going through, particularly when it comes to Vanessa. And I think this movie fumbles Vanessa really hard, and that keeps me from loving it. All of the stuff with Wolverine is fantastic, and by the time you get to the end of the movie, you can't help but have fun. It's still a B for me. But I do have to say, plot-wise, it doesn't even make sense. I think Deadpool and Wolverine handles multiverse elements and showing you crazy things from the multiverse the best. Doctor Strange has the best character-centric story. Spider-Man No Way Home does both things pretty well, and I think that makes it the best of the three. Also, it has Spider-Man in it, and this is a Spider-Man Stan channel. Now, what does Deadpool and Wolverine have to do with Spider-Man? Actually, a lot. At the very beginning of the movie, you see a title card that says, written by Sean Levy, Ryan Reynolds, forgive me, I don't know the third writer's name, and then one Mr. Zeb Wells. And Zeb Wells, as I already established in this stream, is a force that I believe is ruining Spider-Man in comics. His Amazing Spider-Man arc is just terrible. And one of the things that makes it terrible is its insistence on not only not having Peter Parker and Mary Jane together, but insisting on them, they shouldn't be together, is what the book is telling you. It's a little incel-coded, I think. And I think Deadpool and Wolverine does a similar thing with the love interest in that movie. We've watched two films now where Deadpool and Vanessa have, against all odds, emerged together because she loves him profoundly. And they're fictional characters who were written to be together. And I'm so invested in that relationship because it's the heart of what Deadpool is. When we last saw Vanessa and Wade, they were considering getting pregnant and having a child. And the end of Deadpool 2, really pulls at my heartstrings in a real way, because he loved her so much that being with her on the other side was the motivating factor to him when she died. He loved her so much that he brought her back from the dead. They feel so real and such a real relationship in such a silly movie. I always respected that was something the Deadpool movies were able to do. And it's really disappointing that Deadpool 3 breaks them up off screen. Some people are going to say, what are you talking about? There's the scene where they break up in the movie. But that scene is just played in Deadpool's head. That's Deadpool remembering or even revising, because it's Cassandra Nova guiding Deadpool to remember it. I don't know that that's really what happened between them. And even if that scene is exactly how the breakup went down, I'm still at a loss for how it became Deadpool tries to join the Avengers, which in and of itself is a plot hole. He's a little sad. Vanessa, who has been with him through everything, decides that she's not going to stick it out with him. He says, if you don't want to be with me, don't be with me. And then they break up. Could that happen? Sure. But I don't think the movie has earned breaking up this couple that has defined this franchise. In much the same way that I don't think Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man has earned Peter Parker and Mary Jane not being together. I think Zeb Wells has a real problem with breakups. He doesn't seem to want to write characters together, even when that's what the audience wants and what would be more fulfilling for the story. And the thing is, a movie like this could do a breakup plot where Deadpool is broken up with Vanessa and that's his motivation. He wants to get back together with her. He wants to prove himself to her. But this doesn't earn it. It throws out the most important relationship in the franchise so flippantly. Even when you think about where we are in the plot, it doesn't make sense, right? Because Deadpool 2 ends, he visits Vanessa in heaven, And she tells him, I love you so much, I'll be waiting for you when you die. I'll be here for you. I love you, right? And maybe that happened in Wade's head. So let's back up again to the last time he saw Vanessa before that. She says, I want to have a baby with you, Wade. Let's have a baby and start a family. And then an assassin breaks into the apartment and kills her. Deadpool then takes Cable's temp pad and time travels to stop her from being murdered. So in Vanessa's point of view, if we didn't get the heaven scene, which maybe she doesn't remember that, Deadpool and her, Wade and her were going to have a baby. An assassin came in, tried to kill her. Deadpool stopped it from happening. And then Deadpool travels to all these different universes, right? He goes to Green Lantern, or I guess the real life where Ryan Reynolds is getting the Green Lantern script. He goes to the X-Men Origins timeline. And then I guess he can just jump to the 616, which really calls into question why the TVA needed to come and tell him he could be in the Marvel Universe if he wanted it that bad, right? Like, if he could just jump there, why did we need the TVA for that? But okay, we do. So immediately after saving Vanessa's life, Deadpool jumps to the 616 and tries to join the Avengers, and his reasoning is, I need to prove myself to Vanessa because she's getting bored with me. But that doesn't make any sense, because the last time we saw Vanessa, and the last time he saw Vanessa in the story, she was saying, I want to have a baby with you. So is there a time jump? Did he time travel multiple times? And if so, why didn't Matthew McFadden say that to him? And it just feels kind of lazy, and it feels like Zeb Wells, like he did with Spider-Man, just coming in here and trying to break these characters up because that's what the studio mandated. Don't forget, Marvel wanted to make this movie without Colossus, without Vanessa, without Dopinder. They weren't even going to show up. And then they had a change of heart somewhere, right? We can see that with Daredevil. They're taking over a legacy thing that is not originally theirs. And for the longest time, Foggy and Karen were not going to be in the new Daredevil show. And then at the last minute, they realized, well, the fans are not going to like that. We have to put them in. And around the same time that they did that, we started hearing that Vanessa was in fact going to be in Deadpool 3, despite the actress saying she wasn't going to be in the movie to begin with. And then we started hearing Colossus was back, Dopinder was back. And they aren't back. They are in cameo appearances at the beginning of this film. And that's fine. I don't think the story really needed them, but it does feel like they were shoved in to appease fans, right? And it more makes me worried for Daredevil. Like, I hope that Daredevil features more than just a nod to Foggy and Karen. I want them in it hardcore, not like these characters are in Deadpool, right? Which, by the way, the scene where the multiple Deadpools come out to fight Wolverine and Deadpool, which is so cool, right? It's a great choreographed scene. I kind of hate that beat where Peter comes in and it's played as a joke. Like, they finish killing all the Deadpools and then they start getting up, and Deadpool, Prime, and Wolverine are like, oh, they do regenerate. We're not going to be able to fight them and stop Cassandra Nova. That they've gone back to the Foxverse in this scene, to Deadpool's world. And it's even established because we see Blind Al looking out the window at them. And then Peter rolls in, and every Deadpool is like, oh, we all have a Peter. We love that guy. I don't know about that, because Peter is not a main character in the other films. He's not a character that we're attached to beyond a joke. And that's fine. I'm glad Peter is in the movie because it's a really good joke. I love at the end when the TVA lady wants to be with him. I think that's really funny. But a better beat in this movie, I think, would be if Colossus and Dopinder and Negasonic Teenage Warhead showed up and helped Wolverine and Deadpool hold the line. First of all, it would get these characters who we love from the other movies some actual time in the film, and I think that that would go a long way for me. but it also would play into this theme of the midlife crisis, right? Because what is Deadpool and Wolverine about? Well, it's about Deadpool has had a change in his life, and that has caused him to not be Deadpool anymore. Sorry, everybody. Technical difficulties with the microphone, unfortunately. Anyways. How about that? You guys prefer that? I think this beat of them coming and saving Deadpool at the end would really help with the midlife crisis of it all and him overcoming that, because there's that whole line where Deadpool's like, well, I haven't seen any of you guys in a while, and that makes me sad. So them coming to help him when he's become who he truly is again at the end would have played on that beat of friendship and your friends being there for you when it truly mattered. I think that really would have worked and been cool. But I guess the Peter stuff is funny too. But I can forgive everything with Colossus and Negasonic not really being used in the movie. What I can't forgive is Vanessa. I really think that lowered my enjoyment of the movie, like a good amount. It just seems so strange. And it's my one big nitpick, but it's a big nitpick. And it's frustrating because I've been dealing with Zeb Wells, as a fan, dealing with Zeb Wells doing this in the comics for so long. Alternatively, if you're reading the Zeb Wells comic, might I recommend the current line of Ultimate Spider-Man. It's so good. It is the best Spider-Man comic out there right now. And since this is a Spider-Man Day stream, I would like to spotlight that. I think Ultimate Spider-Man is the most fun that I've had reading Spider-Man in so long. I'm not talking about original Ultimate Spider-Man, which is also great. I'm talking about the current 2024 Ultimate Spider-Man run, where Peter Parker is an adult. He's married to Mary Jane, but he gets his powers when he's like 40. Uncle Ben is still alive. It's just such a fun Elseworld version of Spider-Man, where we're still getting a Peter Parker that has all of the same values that we know and love, but we're getting to see him be a family man, which is something that I've wanted in Spider-Man for a long time. They spend a lot of time with teenage Peter Parker now in most media, which at once upon a time was a problem. It was very hard for them to get a young Peter Parker on screen. Now all we get is young Peter Parker. I want some adult Peter Parker. I want to see him trying to work at the Daily Bugle, or better yet, if we could get some Spider-Man media where he was a teacher again, I'd be so happy. But I highly recommend is opposed to the Zeb Wells book, and we'll see who comes on to Amazing next, because I don't think everything that's been done since Spider-Man has been broken up with Mary Jane is bad. But I do think Amazing Spider-Man is a book that goes through a lot of fluctuation and changes, and this particular take did not understand who Peter Parker was. But Ultimate Spider-Man does. Now, speaking of Deadpool and how it connects to Spider-Man, I do have a little pitch. I said that I wanted to see Deadpool and Spider-Man together in a movie. That Deadpool 4 should be Deadpool and Spider-Man. The buddy thing is working for Deadpool, because you could argue that Deadpool 2 is Deadpool and Cable. And then we did Deadpool and Wolverine. There's one more character that Deadpool has a big history with in the comics, and that's Spider-Man. Now, a lot of people are going to say that's not going to work for multiple reasons. First and foremost, Sony will not let Spider-Man be rated R. And I agree, but they should. And I'm going to tell you why after I tell you the other reason. I don't think Tom Holland needs to be in a hypothetical Deadpool and Spider-Man movie. I think Tom Holland is set up for a really interesting new trilogy that's a little bit more street level, grounded, and maybe doesn't rely on other characters coming in a big way. I'd like to see him cross over with maybe Daredevil, Echo, some of the characters that are based in New York City. But I don't think that Tom Holland at this point needs to be in a team-up movie per se, unless it's a Daredevil and Spider-Man team-up, in which case that makes total sense. But Sony has two other Spider-Men at their disposal. No Way Home could have been this really great tool to condition the audience to accept multiple Spider-Mans in live-action stories. You could have Tom Holland in the MCU being Spider-Man, doing that story, which I love, and I'm so excited to see Spider-Man 4 provided they continue on this trajectory. Then you could do Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire. It would be a big nostalgia thing. You could get Sam Raimi back. That movie would make a lot of money, and they should still do it. The question is, what do you do with Andrew Garfield? And I think that Spider-Man is set up to be a little bit more dark, and what they did with him previously has not worked for everybody. I love Amazing Spider-Man 1. I do not love Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't think there are any bad Spider-Man movies, to be clear. I like all of them. But I will say The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is my least favorite Spider-Man movie. And a big problem with that is it doesn't have directorial voice in the same way that Amazing Spider-Man 1 does. It is a movie about corporate synergy and how many Easter eggs can you fit in here, and Sony is taking the wheel. Forget your film. And that's disappointing. And I think it would be really disappointing to bring Andrew Garfield back for an Amazing Spider-Man 3 under those circumstances. And my gut says that that's what would happen, because it's not bring Mark Webb back, the director, it's bring back Andrew Garfield for Amazing Spider-Man 3, and nobody seems to care who the director is. And that's a problem. I want artistic vision if that happens. Now, to be clear, I want Andrew Garfield to come back as Spider-Man. If it's in Secret Wars, I think that would be amazing. Or if they did a buddy cop movie with Spider-Man, with two Spider-Mans, and it was Tobey and Andrew, that would be really fun as well. But I think Andrew Garfield would have to be the main character in that movie, because if they make a Tobey movie where he's Spider-Man, I want him to be the main guy. And I kind of don't want Andrew Garfield in it because I'm very nostalgic for the Raimi Spider-Mans. And I wouldn't want it to turn into a cameo fest. I think... Now, there's also a crowd that wants Andrew Garfield in the Venomverse. I've been taking comments all week because I said I want a new Spider-Man in there. And I want to clarify. I want a new Spider-Man in the Venomverse that we haven't met yet, because I think the Venom, Morbius, Madam Web verse is bad. I think almost all of these films have been terrible. I kind of like Venom Let There Be Carnage, and I think there's potential for Venom The Last Dance. But overall, this whole universe is a soulless cash grab, and almost everything out of it just sucks. I do think Spider-Man would elevate this universe if you had a Spider-Man in there that was a fresh, different take. I do not want to see Andrew Garfield come back for another subpar take on Spider-Man. There's so much potential for him to be the best Spider-Man. Why do you want to throw him into a franchise that is all the problems that Amazing Spider-Man 2 had, with none of the positives? There are big highs to both of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies, but the corporate nature of them is a big low point. And all of that corporate talk and cynical product pushing is so present in the Venom films that Andrew Garfield does not belong there. A new Spider-Man belongs here because we could make the best of a bad situation with a character that we are not attached to. Especially if it was a big joke, a joke of a Spider-Man, a parody of Spider-Man. Not in that it's not Spider-Man, but in that it's like all of the traits of Spider-Man are played up like Colossus in Deadpool. I think that would work really well. Maybe it's a Spider-Man that never takes his mask off. That would also be really fun, because we don't need the Peter Parker side if the villains are the main characters in the movie. You know what I mean? You don't need Peter Parker there if your main character is Venom, because Venom would only interact with Spider-Man, right? So that's kind of my idea there. But I would be really open, despite not wanting to see The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and not wanting to see Venom meet Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, I think Deadpool and Spider-Man would be a really interesting vehicle for Andrew Garfield. Think about it. You can do all of the silliness of Deadpool in that movie. The Deadpool-Spider-Man friendship is such a big part of the comics right now. And it's something that the fans really love. It's an element of Spider-Man we have not seen on screen before, and it kind of grounds Deadpool in a way, too, which is kind of fun. I think Deadpool would kind of ground Spider-Man into a more palatable place for the MCU, but I also think that it could bring a fresh take to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I think to audiences, if they saw an alternate universe version of Spider-Man pop up with Deadpool, it's almost separate than thinking about Spider-Man in Spider-Man 4, which I think is a big worry for Marvel when they do things with the other Spider-Men. On top of that, it's been set up that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is the darkest Spider-Man. He is the one who stopped pulling his punches. I think it would be really cool and really ballsy of Sony, even though they'll never do it, to make that Spider-Man R-rated with Deadpool. Lean into that darkness, but it still stays light because that Spider-Man has a sense of humor, and Deadpool obviously has a sense of humor. I think this is definitely something that they should do. And I think, although we did not have that much Spider-Man to talk about, that's kind of where my Spider-Man Day stream is going to end. It's the number one thing that I want to see from Spider-Man right now that will never happen. It's very cool that Marvel is on a little bit of a come up. I really hope that we see Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4 sooner rather than later. There's a rumor that it starts filming in September. And I think that's a really exciting Spider-Man project that's been set up really well and we haven't heard that much about. Unfortunately with Spider-Man, there are a lot of projects that we don't know what direction they're going in. Animated, we're getting your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but I know the fans want to see 90s Peter Parker back. We did see that character in X-Men 97, but he didn't speak. The voice actor has come out and said that he wants to do it, and I think that they should do that. I've seen a lot of notions that a Spider-Man 90s revival would interfere with the MCU Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show on Disney+. I don't see why you couldn't do both. Spider-Man has always had multiple versions of himself going in the comics. Spider-Man is the most popular Marvel superhero. I don't see any reason why you couldn't have two separate animated Spider-Man things and people would understand that. I think that that would be, the more Spider-Man there is, the more popular he gets in a lot of ways. Anyway, those are my current thoughts on Spider-Man. And I'm hoping to see him be a big piece of Secret Wars and Avengers Doomsday when he gets to meet his dad. As always, I love Spider-Man, and I love National Spider-Man Day because I get to sit here and talk about it, even when it's through the lens of talking about other Marvel stuff that's happening in the landscape right now. So thank you for joining me today on this albeit shorter stream and late stream, and I'll see you at another time. Make sure to like and subscribe and all of that stuff, and maybe watch some of my more produced videos, including one that I just did on Venom: The Last Dance, as well as some of my documentary stuff, like Oliver the Ricketts American Genius. Be on the lookout for When I Crush a Watermelon Between My Thighs. I'll see you in the next one.